Welcome back, 100 squats a day. Today we're going to talk about 3 fixes that you can make to improve your squat. Now, the first one, of course, has to do with depth. Making sure you're going low enough. So, do this in front of a mirror or record yourself on a video to really make sure you're getting enough depth through the full 100 reps. Now, what does proper depth look like? It looks like this. It looks like getting your hip crease right here, that crease in your hip, beneath the knee. So this is proper depth, this is not. So this is a rep, this is not. This is a rep, this is not. So 100 of these, not 100 of these. Now if you can't, for whatever reason, get that, if you're stuck right here and you can't get low enough without falling back, then I suggest getting a little stool or a chair or something, so that you go hip crease beneath the knee. So right now my hip crease beneath the knee, I can sit down comfortably, stand back up. Sit down, stand back up. That is one way of fixing that little issue there. Another great way is to raise your heels slightly. So you get something, like, it doesn't need to be too high, but just maybe like a centimeter, an inch the most, whatever. You just make it so your heels are on that little lift there. Something to lift your heels up. It is much easier to sink down lower while keeping your back nice and straight. If you look at the people who lift the heaviest weights in the world in the Olympics, they're always wearing those weightlifting shoes, and those weightlifting shoes lift their heels up, so they're on a bit of an incline. Makes it a lot easier to keep their back straight and sink down nice and low. The second thing to work on is keeping your knees wide. What do narrow knees look like? You don't want narrow knees, but narrow knees basically are when your knees are forward instead of wide. So this is what narrow knees look like. If your squats look like this, switch it up. You don't want those knees going forward. You want those knees wide. So before you even go down to squat, before you even start sinking back, create a twist. So feet, like right now as I'm standing, my knees are forward. So if I were to go down to squat like this, I'd have those narrow knees. But before you even go down to squat, look at my knees, I'd twist them out. So I create that twist before I even go down. Now I've created the twist. Now as I go down, my knees stay super, super wide. And this also helps with creating an arch in the foot there. So if you're squatting with narrow knees, you're more likely to collapse inwards. If you squat with wide knees, super, super wide knees, you have a nice arch in your foot, and it's very supportive. A lot of people are unable to keep their knees wide just because they don't have that range of motion in their hips. And if you're not keeping your knees wide when you're doing the squats, you're not actually engaging a big part of your glute muscles in your hips, and even part of your quad. So if you're doing the squats and your knees are forward like this, you're really not even hitting a big part of your glute muscle, which is a really big muscle, and you want to make sure you're hitting that. So keep the knees wide, and you use a lot more muscles, so it'll feel a bit harder, but you'll be so much stronger as a result. So the stretch to keep the knees wide looks like this. You go into lunge position. Okay, your back knee's on the ground, back foot's on the ground. This front knee is wide, of course, it's never forward. I'm going to drop my right elbow down to my right heel. So we call this stretch elbow to heel stretch, because the elbow goes down to the heel. And if you're not able to get down like this and comfortably hold that position, you're too tight, you're too short here. To increase that flexibility, just hang out in this position whatever you can, keeping that knee wide. Keep it wide. And if for whatever reason you can't get that right elbow down to the heel, start by getting your left elbow down. It's a lot easier. So you can get that left elbow down, and you might even feel the stretch here pulling inside. Personally I don't, but I have a lot of clients that do. That just means you're a lot tighter in there. You want to hold this stretch for at least 2 minutes. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to hold it for 2 minutes, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when I go down to squat. I'll compare the right leg with the left leg to show you how much of a difference it makes with keeping the knees wide. So this is basic range of motion. If you don't have this type of range of motion, you're able to get your elbow down to your heel, you're missing out on some serious range, and you're setting yourself up for injury. So before you go on with your athletics, with your running, with your cycling, whatever, be sure to get this range of motion. This is absolutely essential. We're all born with this type of range of motion. Get any baby to do that, no problem. We just lose it as we go on. So if you can't do it, spend a couple days hanging out down here, 2 to 3 minutes per side, and watch what a difference it makes. So watch how much wider I can keep this leg compared to my left leg. So here we go, and down a hold. Like, look at that. I'm pushing my left leg out as far as I can, and pushing my right leg out, and look at the difference. It's like a completely different leg. So now, of course, I'm going to spend 2 or 3 minutes on this leg, even it out. And the last thing to improve on is keeping your hands, your arms, always above your knees. So some people, when they squat, they'll go down and they'll squat like this. Never let your hands drop beneath your knee, because what that does is it makes you lean forward a bit more. So you have to bend down, and you don't want that. So always keep your hands up. You'll be a lot more efficient, and keep your back a lot straighter. So hands always over the knees, never let them dip. So tuck them up. Get this bend in the arm, and tuck them up. Well, it's a lot easier to keep your back straight if you have straight arms. So if you have troubles keeping a straight back, just have your arms out nice and straight. But again, never let them go below your knee. So as your butt starts to sink down, your hands start to float up. Just like that. So what does it look like when you put all 3 together? You get the hip crease beneath the knee, your knees are wide, and your hands are always above your knees. So just like that. There are a few cues on how to remember to do all these things, but basically if you can just remember butt back, knees wide, back straight, head up, it'll be pretty good. Last point I want to make here, if you are able to get your squats under 2 minutes, please post a video. I'd love to see it. It's rare that I get to see someone do their 100 squats under 2 minutes, and it's always a joy for me to see that. So yeah, if you're not there yet, just keep working towards it, and you get there. I'm sure you'll get there. So ciao.